One of the best things about video games is the fact they put you in control, letting you drive the characters and experience the story and the action for yourself. Of course, with that being the case, sometimes the next few moments in a video game hinge around you doing something that may not be completely obvious at first glance, which is where the humble button prompt comes in. If you're watching this video, the chances are you've seen and followed more button prompts on screen than you've had hot dinners, sometimes without even thinking about it. But then, of course, there are those button prompts you can't help but think about, because they're really daft. So, in honour of all the times we were asked to poke a button to do something completely absurd, here are 16 times pressing X was stupid. Number 1, politely asking a horse to poop in Metal Gear Solid 5, The Phantom Pain. Snake has a whole cast of helpful allies to help him out in the field, from ultimate good boy D-Dog to questionably attired sniper Quiet, inspiration for some of my favourite cosplay pictures of all time. One companion in particular, however, is notable for offering a rather scatological button prompt. I am of course referring to D-Horse, who, with a simple tap of right on the D-pad, can be instructed to pinch one off.
Out with it.
It's impressive, although I'm not sure Snake should be applauded for having taught D-Horse to poop on command. In researching this video, I looked up whether horses can actually control their bowels, or whether they just poop automatically without any say in the matter, and apparently they can hold it, but then horses have a tendency to get colicky, so it's best to just let them fire one off as and when they need to. In other words, it's a neat trick, Snake, but you're probably making D-Horse feel quite uncomfortable. Anyway, the ethics of pooping on command aside, this weaponised horse dung is surprisingly effective in the field, as you can use it to make vehicles spin out of control. But, let's face it, most players use the command to crap on prone enemies, or on Snake himself. More like a bottom prompt, am I right? Special mention also goes to Ark Survival Evolved in the Press X to Poop category, as there's a button prompt that makes you, the player character, poo themselves. I understand there is some kind of advantage to doing this, but never having played Ark myself, I am stumped as to what it could possibly be. Our next weird button prompt is also a bit of a messy one, and still involves the animal kingdom, though you'll be pleased to hear it doesn't involve fecal matter. It does, however, involve Duke Nukem Forever. Sorry about that. If you have the stomach to make it far enough through Duke Nukem Forever, at some point you'll come across this rat, which is perfectly happy minding its own business, or wondering who it upset to be put into such a rubbish video game. Anyway, you can put the little rodent out of its misery by scooping it up, ignoring the prompt that says squish, and tossing it in this nearby microwave. Then, with a simple press of X to begin microwaving, you can watch the rat begin to panic before exploding into a few pieces, which, to be honest, is pretty horrible. Honestly, the quality of microwave-ready meals really has plummeted recently. Right, after that little display, I think we could all do with a little tenderness, don't you? Never fear, here comes Talion, Ranger of Gondor, to save the day by, stalking his wife. Before he's slaughtered in a blood ritual and turned into a half-man, half-wraith, Shadow of Mordor's protagonist Talion is shown as a tender soul who wants to surprise and delight his other half. Having picked a flower for her, he drops into a stealthy crouch walk and approaches from behind, earning the infamous button prompt, while in stealth, press square to kiss your wife. Hats off to Monolith for trying to make a simple stealth tutorial into something a bit more meaningful in terms of setting the story and all, but it did seem a bit daft. Of course, every other time you use this button combination in Shadow of Mordor, it's to plunge a knife into an unsuspecting enemy, but all the same, I can't help wondering what it might have been like to see Talion plant a tender smooch on an Uruk's cheek. Just once. While we're talking about using strange button prompts while sneaking about, the next item on our list takes us to Call of Duty Ghosts, and specifically Riley, the very good boy. A member of the US Special Operations Unit, Riley is a highly skilled German Shepherd sporting a special vibrating collar, radio, and body cam. Impressively, he can also bring down a helicopter if it gets too close to the ground by biting the pilot. Let nobody say Riley doesn't work hard for a treat. Anyway, there are 2 daft button prompts to do with Riley, the first being hold X to sync with dog, a command which lets you pull up a tablet and digitally wag into your canine companion. This is swiftly followed by, frankly, one of the silliest prompts on this entire list: press X to bark.
See if you can get his attention.
Being a dog owner myself, it would have been nice to see other prompts like press X to ask for belly rubs, or press X to go bananas because there's a squirrel in the garden, but you can't win them all. Great as Riley's press X to bark is, however, it's far from the most famous instance of pressing X to get your vocal cords going in this video. That honour goes to a man named Ethan Mars, or more specifically, his missing son.
Jason!
Yeah, we couldn't not, really, could we? The button prompt that launched 1,000 memes, it was pressing X to Jason that first shone a spotlight on the silly things games ask us in all seriousness to perform in order to keep the action going. As if you didn't know already, the start of Heavy Rain sees father Ethan Mars walking around a shopping centre with his son Jason, who then goes missing. Heavy Rain at this point invites you to wander around pressing X to call after your son. For several minutes. While this scene is meant to represent the slowly rising panic in Ethan as his separation from Jason stretches painfully onward, it rather unfortunately came across as a bit silly, meaning this most emotional of button prompts was quickly renamed Press X to Jason. What's even better about this preposterous prompt is that nobody making the game seemed to anticipate it would become a meme, so it happens again at the end of the game, when you can press X to Sean. There's nothing quite like a callback to a silly bit of shouting right at the emotional climax of a 10-hour video game, is there?
Jason!
On the topic of emotional moments undermined by overly sincere requests, we're back to Call of Duty next for another particularly famous button prompt. In one infamous moment in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare, Mitchell tries to deal with the fact over 6,000 US troops have just been killed, including his best friend, Private William Robert Irons. Standing guard at his funeral, what should be an emotional moment is totally derailed by the button prompt press F to pay respects, or hold square to pay respects, as seen in this capture here. Hey, my best friend just died, better press this button. Poignant. To be honest, I can't think of anything that could possibly make a funeral worse. Oh wait, tell a lie, there's Kevin Spacey. Suffice it to say, this video game has not aged particularly well. As awkward as the press F to pay respects scene in Call of Duty Advanced Warfare is, however, there's actually another scene involving a grave that honestly rivals it for silliest button prompt. We need to wind the clock back to 2011 for this one, which comes to us by way of THQ's Homefront. Homefront, as you may remember, takes place in an alternate history America under the control of North Korean forces. During one mission, you're tasked with infiltrating a labour camp, and on doing so, you stumble across a mass grave and stop to take stock of the sheer loss of life. Unfortunately, while you're having this moment, a helicopter comes looking for you, giving you a scant few seconds to hide, and then comes the incredible button prompt, press E to jump in mass grave. Not hide in mass grave, not take cover in mass grave, but jump. Jump in mass grave, like it's a big fleshy ball pond. Better still, you disguise yourself further, having jumped in said mass grave, by draping a corpse's arm across your forehead, like some sort of weird sun visor. I mean, fair play to the squad, the tactic pays off and you get to live, but there's just something about the words, press E to jump in mass grave, that sort of takes the sheen off a bit. But of course, not all button prompts are quite so obsessed with death. Indeed, some of them focus on the very first moments of life, like Assassin's Creed 2. Fans of the Assassin's Creed series will know that the Animus is able to access a subject's genetic memories and allow them to relive the life of their ancestor from the moment they're born until the moment their child, the next ancestor in the chain, is conceived. So it is that, in Assassin's Creed 2, you get to witness the birth of Ezio Auditore, who, in the first moments of life, is not breathing. His father Giovanni scoops him up and tells him that, being an Auditore, he's a fighter, and thus he needs to fight. And so follows a chain of frankly bizarre button prompts as you, a literal baby, struggle to hold on to your place in the world. Press A to move your chubby little baby legs. Press B to move your empty hand. Press X to use your armed hand. Why does the baby have an armed hand? Who would give a baby a weapon? No time to think about it. Press Y to move your little baby head and finally get those lungs working.
Ezio Auditori da Firenze.
Nice one, baby Ezio. You'll be stabbing people to death in no time at all. Assassin's Creed 2 isn't the only game to have you play as a newborn baby, mind you. You also get the privilege in Fallout 3. At the very start of Fallout 3, your dad Liam Neeson starts having a chat with you about what your name is and what you're going to look like when you get older, as if you already understand English perfectly. There's a brief pause while your mum goes into cardiac arrest, and then we flash forward a full year, when the game asks you to cross the room and press E to talk to Dad. As a 1-year-old. Like most button prompts, of course, this one is just getting you ready to perform this action throughout the rest of the game when you're actually going to need it, but nonetheless, there's something daft and really rather charming about being asked to cross the room and then strike up a conversation with your dad Liam Neeson when all you can do is babble incoherently.
I know you don't like it when Daddy leaves you alone, but I need you to take care of yourself for a minute.
Our next button prompt comes to us from the delightful Super Mario Odyssey. To be honest, there are any number of button prompts we could choose from this particular game, but I'm fairly sure we've zeroed in on the strangest. In Odyssey's Luncheon Kingdom, there's a massive vat of stupendous stew bubbling away, but it's missing one key ingredient, namely the salt-crusted meat. Taking control of the piece of meat, you first need to break out of the salt rim. Once you've done that, you edge your way into the line of sight of a massive bird so it'll carry you into the stew. How do you manage this? Why, it's simple. You press B to twitch. The next time pressing X was stupid in this list is when you had to decide whether to save or sacrifice the little sisters in Bioshock. Yeah, that's right. Now stick with me on this one. I know Bioshock is a treasured game and I still adore it, but the simple fact is that while having to decide between saving the little sisters or pulling the Adam-producing slugs from their spines should have been a really big decision, it didn't really make good on its promise of earth-shattering moral importance. Deciding to sacrifice a little sister in Bioshock essentially amounted to raising your hand and saying, "Hello, one bad ending, please." The rest was just a matter of economy. Did you want the greater Adam yields of sacrificing the little sisters, or would you prefer a slightly lesser amount each time in exchange for the occasional gift from Dr. Tenenbaum? A bit like pressing X to Jason, dealing with the little sisters was meant to be a really big moment for the player, but it was just a bit nothingy. Do feel free to tell me how wrong I am about this one in the comments, but it's something I've been unable to shake about Bioshock for a while now. While we're on the topic of exploring sinister watery worlds and obeying silly button prompts, it'd be remiss not to mention Arkham City's sewer sequence in which you press X to beat down a shark. In an homage to the 60s Batman shark repellent sequence, this part of the game sees the caped crusader perched on a rickety raft while an absolutely massive shark does its best to eat it, presumably an appetizer before eating Batman himself. The Dark Knight, of course, has other ideas, which is when the game gives you the opportunity to press X and beat the crap out of the massive watery predator. And then finally on this list of times pressing X was stupid, we have pretty much everything in WarioWare ever. WarioWare is undoubtedly the king of daft button prompts, thriving as it does on giving you a small, silly task to do, and then maybe like 3 seconds to get it done. Whether you're catching, shaving, squatting, assembling, or any of the innumerable things there are to do in WarioWare, you can be sure you'll be doing something silly. And there you have it, 16 times pressing X was stupid. Doubtless we've missed some good ones though, so if you have any particular favourites of your own, please feel free to fire them into the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, we've got loads more for you to watch, and some of them should be on screen now. Do like and subscribe if you fancy it, but either way, thank you very much for watching, and have a lovely day.
Oh yeah.